Gonna listen to footage tonight?
No.
When two Division I athletes discuss the challenges and successes of navigating life after competing, you get conversations designed by athletes for athletes. I'm Don Sutton.
And I'm Brooke Bierhaus, sharing with the athletic community stories and insights to better understand life when your sport ends. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of When Your Sport Ends, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? On this week's episode, we're talking to Dr. Antonio Harrison, or as some of you might know him, Coach Doc, host of the Bleav podcast Athlete Behavior. Dr. Antonio Harrison was born and raised in Pasadena, California. He is a behavior scientist and much of his work focuses on health, sports, and fitness. He is a husband, a dad of 3, and a former NCAA athlete football player at Grinnell College in Iowa. He is also a graduate school professor, podcast host, speaker, author, and all-around content creator. Enjoy this conversation with Dr. Antonio Harrison, where I hope that you find the content to be raw, real, and relevant. We would really love to hear, to just start out, more about what your job entails and sort of what your day-to-day is like. If it's the same, if it's not the same every day, you can give us a gist of what you do so we can better understand you and your mission in life.
My day-to-day is pretty much whatever I design it to be. I teach graduate school online, and I'm actually just now going to be teaching back in person because I missed it over at Pepperdine University. I teach online for University of West Florida. And so those are typically night classes. During the day, if it's during football season, I've got football practice where I coach. I'm a defensive coordinator for a high school varsity team. And during football season, Monday through Thursday, we've got practice. Friday nights are games. Sunday, coaches meeting and film. And then I also teach a fitness class, a treadmill studio fitness class. It's 3 classes a week. It's only 2 nights a week. And I get to play DJ and put together a playlist. And I do a hip hop night on Tuesdays. And we match the beats per minute of the music to increase potential heart rate output, beats per minute of heart rate for our clients. And I'm doing a lot of videos on demand, kind of like the whole Peloton thing you see. And so I got that going on. And then, as a behavior scientist, I work a lot with whether it be clients or giving talks or lectures or invited speaking engagements. And a lot of that stuff is either in the realm of parenting, leadership, or health, sports, and fitness. Recently, I wrote this open letter to our field, and it kind of put me on this diversity and inclusion track, which I don't know if I want to make that my go-to, but it's getting me, flowing all over the country this year to Boston, Texas, Washington, D.C. So, I'll take it for now. I like it. I enjoy it. I love being on stage and talking in front of people. So why not?
Truly a renaissance man. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. I like how you incorporate, I guess, part of your career is working out. That's very awesome. And then you also have the aspect of the father-son ordeal where you just kind of put on a whole bunch of, outings along with parent teaching as well. You want to dive into a little bit of that?
Yeah, so the father-sons thing, honestly, it's a big thing for me and my dad. We went through a lot growing up. And just to be honest and frank here, I lived in Los Angeles through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And when the crack epidemic hit, it hit my home. My dad got hooked. And when we found out when I was 10, my dad just decided to stop going out on 3-day weekend benders, and he just did it at home. So we had a lot of ups and downs, but he's my best friend. And even though when he wasn't using, he was the greatest dad in the world. And it was because he was just simply present. He was there. And there's so many things that just having a dad around can do for men, women, anybody. But I have 3 boys, so it's hard for me to I can speak about parenting in general with my background in science of human behavior, but I've got 3 boys, so it's different than raising a young woman.
Sure.
So I do a lot of videos for parents and tips on that, and have done a course on masculinity for high school kids, and work with just a lot of people in the neighborhoods and the communities on how to be better dads. Because quite frankly, it's one of the toughest things because, men, we don't want to ask for directions, let alone ask anybody how to help raise our children. And then with the fitness part, it was something that I had to do. In all honesty, my doctor told me if with my back and my knee after my injury, if I didn't stay healthy and fit, it was going to be a rough road ahead for me. So I just made sure to stay in that lane and continue to do that. And that's changed. I've dropped all the weightlifting and football stuff. And now I swim, 2 to 3 miles a week, do Tai Chi. And then I just every morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, for folks who can't afford a gym membership, can't afford a trainer, don't want to go to the gym, feel like they need motivation or can't put together workouts, just go to my YouTube channel live, completely free. I don't bombard you with sponsorships, and just follow a 30-minute at-home workout with 0 weights involved and get fit. Like, if you really want to do it, there's no excuses anymore. Just press play.
Nice.
Yeah, I
Cool.
really like that. I feel like that transition out of having a structure and playing, I mean, you were part of a team, so you had those training sessions every single day and working out with someone. Was that new or hard at all to go through working out by yourself right after the injury and getting back into working out again?
I've played organized sports since I was 4, and it started out as a swimmer actually, but for the most part, it's always been basketball. It's always been basketball and football. And that's a team sport. But honestly, my training ground for being able to keep up my own self-discipline and work out on my own was the fact that I had to go through being casted hip to toe for a year and a half and spending like another half of a year on rehab for my knee. And I mean, sitting on a stationary bike every day for 45 minutes when no one else is around, if you're going to be by yourself, you better be in good company. Right. So,
Right.
so that's
You
what
got to love yourself first.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
that was my training ground, but it was tough. It was not something I was used to.
I know this is uncomfortable to say, but do you think that helped you moving out of football, which is an extremely physical sport, into more of managing the body and continuing to stay fit? Or did you have kind of that brief period where you didn't do much once the sport ended?
Mm-hmm.
I stayed doing stuff because I didn't know how to stop.
Yeah.
But I will say I had to learn that, I didn't need to hang clean 275 pounds in a workout or make sure I'm benching 315. Like, it's just not necessary anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
What exactly did happen with how did you get injured? I don't think I know that backstory.
So I was going into my senior year. I didn't have enough money to come home from Iowa, so I got a grant to write a paper about a nonprofit in the city. And all I did was wake up every day. I worked out, went to the nonprofit, came home and worked out again. And I was the biggest, fastest, strongest I had ever been in my life. And when I got to training camp and the weight I was pushing for max rep days, the coaches were like, "You're not going to play safety anymore. You're going to play linebacker, and we're just going to send you after the quarterback."
Wow.
And I was super pumped. But I had been safety for 3 years as a starter. So our first game, the opposing coach recognized that I wasn't there anymore and that there was a freshman back there. And they started to attack this kid, just eat him alive. And so at halftime, the coach made an adjustment and said, "Antonio, go back to being safety." And I said, "Okay, cool." And, I was playing safety first series of the third quarter, and I read a route that was going deep, and I cut underneath it, and I was running laterally to my right, and I jumped up and I tipped the ball, but the ball went behind my head. And instead of going with gravity and turning over my right shoulder to see if the receiver was going to catch it, I turned back against gravity over my left shoulder while I was floating right. And when I landed, I just simply slipped and the inside of my ankle touched my groin.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I didn't tear. I obliterated my ACL, LCL, PCL, IT band, hamstring, meniscus, complete knee and shin dislocation. So skin and MCL were the only two things holding my leg together. And
Oh
so
man.
they came on the field, popped my shin and knee back into place at the same time, and then took me to the doctor. And at that time, it had swelled up bigger than a grapefruit. And the doctor was like, we can't even x-ray this. So I was like, give me some crutches and a brace. I got to get back to the game. So I crutched, small town, 4 stoplights. So I crutched the 2 blocks back to campus and got
Wow.
to see our team get the winning touchdown on the last drive. And so that was the last time I ever played football.
That's a pretty heavy story. I like how you made it a point to get back to the team.
Mm-hmm.
I feel personally like really close with my teammates that I swam with, and we try to make a point to get there. You want to touch a little bit on that aspect as far as the team and how you maintained over the years?
In all honesty, and
Mhm.
I've got some brothers on the team that our friendship is beyond team. That's just kind of where we met. And
Yeah.
those are the folks that I still stay in contact with. And it's not to knock my team. It's just the confession of a broken heart, I guess you could say. And what I mean is my surgery story is kind of horrendous. Um, I went into surgery, and because things didn't tear, they couldn't mend them. They had to use 2.5 Achilles tendons from cadavers and 5 screws and plugs to replace my ligaments. So I
Oh
had
my
I had
God.
2.5 surgeries in one night on my first surgery. And just on the cutting room table alone, I was there for 12.5 hours. And about 10 hours in, I started to come to out of anesthesia with my leg wide open. And so
Oh man.
they got super scared and they flooded me with anesthesia and strapped me down crucifix style. And what it did was basically put me in a medically induced coma for 3 days. And so I went in at 199 pounds, like no neck, just solid muscle. And I woke up 3 days later at 145, 148.
Whoa.
And all the time I was in the hospital recovering, one teammate, not one coach, no one else, just one teammate, my defensive end, Waylon Woods out in San Antonio, Texas. He's the only person that came to visit me 45 minutes away. And I get it. They were playing, they're in season. But that's something that hurt my heart that I still hold on to. The fact that he's the only person who showed up out of all the years and everything I did for that program, even though maybe I didn't live up to my full potential because I was partying and chasing girls and things like that. But the fact that only one person showed up, I just felt like a commodity that was used up, and I was an asset that was no longer available.
That in itself, I mean, any injury is hard to come out of mentally, but I mean, this really is a testament to how strong you are. And I can imagine a lot of people that would have spiraled after this. I mean, learning from everything that you had to overcome, was that a main part of why you wanted to get into being a behavior scientist? I mean, were you curious like how you were able to get out of this?
Well, it's kind of funny. It goes back to my dad. The only reason I didn't spiral out of control is because the narcotics they gave me were just way too strong, and I was way too
Mm.
small. I couldn't handle them. I was, 145 soaking wet and just like a shell of myself. I hadn't been 145 since middle school, so like I just couldn't handle the painkillers they gave me. So I didn't go that route. So I kind of like had to be on point. And to go back to my dad, what I mean is I'm 10 years old, and all throughout from 10 to 18 to 17 when I graduated high school, I see my dad use in the house. And if you've ever seen anyone under the influence of crack cocaine, like they get super paranoid. So he would be in the living room behind curtains holding butcher knives, peering out the window. And like my sister and I would have to stomp around the house to ensure that he knew it was us so we didn't startle him. So when you go through that shit at a young age, like there's nothing else in the world that's really gonna bother you. Like, what is that? What does my knee have to, I mean, how does my knee compare to that? Like, it just doesn't, right? I saw shit at a young age that no kid should ever see, and put in situations. So it's like, it hardened my resolve to be able to get through stuff as much as I would never, ever want my kids to experience, or any kids for that matter, to experience anything like that. But that's really what got me through it, and what made me say, I want to study psychology, because I want to know why the hell people do what they do. I want to know why my dad can't pull away from this thing. Why do people get involved in this? But then, your interest of sports and health and fitness, that's what I love. That's my world. Well, that starts to creep into my education, and I didn't want to be an addiction counselor. So I just loved people. I loved watching people.
Did you see football as your escape in those times? I mean,
I did see it as my escape, in a sense that the thing I was, I guess, known for in sports or football, in college, my nickname was Angry on the football team, because I was a smaller guy, but I would throw my body around with reckless abandon. And I used to just hit really hard. I just had a natural gift for that. And I wasn't consciously thinking about, I'm taking out all of my feelings here, but it was, you aren't as tough as I am. There's no way. And I'm going to make you feel it because you've dared to step on a field with me. And so that's how I got, I guess, some of that angst out, because otherwise I'd have been a hellraiser for any high school.
Yeah, I bet. Have you noticed, or is this a component to your research at all, how athletes handle anger or their emotions, like how they process it?
That's an interesting thing. I think it really just boils down to people's history and the sports they play. Like, a swimmer's not going to have the same approach to physicality as, say, a football player, but a water polo player may be closer to a football player than an actual swimmer, right? So it's an interesting thing. Most of my work really was more focused on self-discipline, because I had to get myself up and get myself to practice. I had to put in the work. There was nobody there who was going to drive me or take me or do this. Like, my mom was working multiple jobs because my dad was doing what he was doing. So, my parents did a great job in terms of, especially my mom, of getting me where I had to go. But I was carpooling everywhere I went. I had to be up to get myself to school to, go to practice early, or find a way home after the game. That was all on me. So self-discipline has been like my big, huge thing that I work on myself every single day. And it's a never ending journey. And that I try to help anyone who wants help. I don't force it on anyone.